What is up everyone, I'm Vortex TCG and today I'm going to be showcasing Bagra Army in BT11, and what a way to showcase it by playing a mirror match. Wasn't really expecting the mirror match to happen so soon, but turns out happens automatically. But if you're enjoying the content, I know there's a lot of love on the Digimon deck profile that I posted recently, and I just want to say thank you. And again, if you really enjoyed the content, please do like and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you can imagine. But my opponent gets a really good start here. Essentially, he's able to go into the Tamer a lot easier because he actually has one, and my board isn't very good. I don't have a level 3, I don't have the Tamer, so it's not great. So I'm having to play the option card here. I finally get the Tamer, so I'm going to add that to my hand and then put the Choo-Choo-Mon underneath the Matashida. And as I added a card, he can then trash from the Mad Leomon to then discard a card, a force discard from my hand. And so then I go to the Damemon to then play the Uemano. So at this point I'm feeling at least a little bit better. He swings into security and the Mad Leomon doesn't die, so that's pretty good for us actually, because he wants it to be triggered, and instead he's going to have to use the Buzzing Fist to trigger the Uemano on his turn. So pretty good for me. And so he's got a lot of memory to play with this turn, which is quite scary, because when they have a lot of memory like this, they can do a massive swing turn. But my opponent here is just going to go for another Mad Leomon and then play another Mad Leomon, so potentially double discard, double memory gain here if I decide to search something. So I'm going to have to be very careful about this for sure. So I'm going to swing with the Damemon and it goes into the Tamer, then I draw and then gain a memory, and my opponent didn't pick up on that, so thank goodness for that, I guess. It's one of the things you have to worry about, like Mad Leomon, because there isn't really a card like Mad Leomon where you have to remember that if they draw a card by an effect, you have to respond. So it's very weird in that regard. So I played the Tactimon here. I still think Tactimon's pretty good in this deck, so feeling pretty good about that at least. He then goes into the Choo-Choo-Mon and then adds a card to his hand, potentially. I think he's just checking if it's Bagra Army or not. He adds one, and then I use the armed mode to trash from the Tactimon to draw 2 and gain a memory. So yeah, the draw 2 from armed mode is pretty good for sure. It's just I wish it could do a little bit more for sure. So he swings with the Mad Leomon with no sources, gets to gain a memory and draw a card. I then block the other one because I think at this point I need to be reserving my security at this point. So, but I also know that I've got a potential avenue to go into game next turn. So we'll have to see how it goes. Depends if I can actually get the draws going for maybe like a Blastmon or something like that. So at this moment, I finally find a level 3. Hurrah! Swing to security and it goes into the U, and I get to gain a memory and draw a card. Again, he's not picking up on the Mad Leo armed or the Mad Leo effects here, because if he was to do that, he'd gain so much advantage here because it is an effect to draw a card. So just one of those things you just have to keep an eye on for sure. I swing again and then I put it underneath Uemano again as it dies. And so at this point I'm just checking my security, see what I can do going forward. I push with the Tactimon as well, because the Tactimon at this point is just kind of like a little bit dead weight. So we try and push with it a little bit. And then at this point I've got like a bit of an option. So I go into the Astral to play, I believe, 2 Digimon underneath Uemano for a big swing next turn potentially, and then put the Choo-Choo-Mon on top of the armed mode here. So feeling very confident. If he does, however, have the answer, it could be a little bit worrying. Like, I'm worried about a Blastmon here because I'm not too sure fully about this build. So I'm a bit worried for sure. So he swings the Choo Choo, hits into another Choo Choo, so he gains a memory and draws a card. We'll do that again. Sorry, my bad. Madleomon survives. So at this point, he's got to try and force something out. So he plays the Uemano again, so he can get those stacking effects going. And at this point, I don't think there's really any answer that he could have. So he goes to the Bagramon here, and it's not what you really want here. So as I only have one, I have to reveal my hand, and he gets to discard a card. So, you know, there's some stuff here that could be good. So he just decides to discard the Lilithmon, and then I swing for game. And so we get into game 2, and at this point I'm feeling a little bit more confident because I have the Soundbirdmon in my starting hand. This is probably the best card you can have in raising. And then to start the turn, I go into the Madleomon armed mode. And this is what you really want for an opening hand, essentially, because a lot of the time your opponent will tend to search on their opening turn, but we're playing a Bagra Army matchup, so we're going to be just hard playing guys, because that's all we can really do. So I don't promote the Soundbirdmon here because I don't have a real reason, and I just pass here because I know that we both want to trigger our effects to gain bonuses. And so what he decides to do here is he goes to the Chikurimon, obviously valuing that he wants to get the search because he doesn't have potentially the Tamer here. And as he adds a card, I get to draw 2 from the Madleomon armed mode. So, and he can't trigger his Madleomon effect here either because it's only your opponent's turn. So thank goodness, essentially. I find the Tamer, so I'm feeling very confident at this point that I'm in the driving seat for the rest of this game. And so he still has to figure out what he needs to do. He needs to get his search on, essentially. So I'm feeling very confident for sure. He wants to, you know, he has a pretty good start here as well with the Soundbird and the Madleomon, but unfortunately not finding the Tamer here is being very detrimental. So what he decides to do here is he goes into another Digicross for Madleomon armed mode, so he reduces the amount of memory that I have during this turn, essentially. So I swim with the Soundbirdmon and I use his effect to put one underneath and draw a card, and then obviously he can respond by trashing one to draw 2, and then I'll gain 1 and then draw an additional 1 for put one underneath Uemano, and then it dies, so I get to get additional draw and discard from the Demimera, swing with the armed mode, and still doesn't really hit into anything, just another Madleomon on my opponent's side. So what I do here is I go for the Call for Darkness to force out the deletion here, because it just basically means that I'm able to you know, just continue my game plan and get the resources underneath you so I can go into the Lilithmon on the following turn. So I trash the top 4 cards and I get to add 2 and then put 2 underneath a Tamer. So what I do here is I go for a Uemano because it counts as a Bagra Army card, and I add the Lilithmon back. Lilithmon loop is back in a whatever terrible way. So you know, it is what it is. So he goes for a Chikurimon here, and then he finally gets the Tamer. But I think at this point it's a little too late, because I have so much advantage going on here, and if he was to ever provide like a threat onto the board by raising, I have an answer in the Lilithmon, so he needs to deal with this Lilithmon himself. And so I get to start off my turn here pretty easy by going to the Chikurimon here. And we continue our advantage by going into a Chikurimon on play to delete a guy, and then add a card, put the rest at the bottom, and as I put one underneath, get a memory, and draw a card, and then he gets to do Madleomon to draw 2. At this point I'm not really bothered about this effect because obviously he has the Tamer now, so it's not really a big threat. He goes to pushes up the Soundbirdmon, so I use Lilithmon to gain a memory and force him to lose free memory when he attacks. He goes into the swing, and he decides to draw because of the Uemano, so he gets the Mad Leomon, and then he swings again. So we're at 3-3 security, but I have a massive advantage going into the next turn because I have a lot of guys ready to come onto the board. He does have the answer though in the Astral, so he puts the Lilithmon underneath the Mad Leomon armed mode, and then puts Digimon underneath the Uemano. So I promote the Chikirimon here, and I've got a lot of memory to play with, but he needed to do this to keep himself alive, essentially. So what I do here is I go into another Uemano, and so I can get double benefits, essentially, here. So at this point, I'm feeling pretty good. I play another Uemano here, play a Buzzing Fist. I add the Buzzing Fist, the Chichimon to my hand, and then put one underneath, gain a memory, draw a card. And this is why Bagra Army is so much fun, because the interaction that you have from Uemano and the memory gain is something that you don't get in any other deck, I feel anyways. So I then go into the Bagramon here, passing him on 2, and then effect, I get to trash a card, and I trash the only real threat in the Bagramon here, because, well, it's the only thing he's going to really answer for. So he swings here, goes into this, and then draws and gains a memory. It dies, so not really be anything big there. And I think at this point we have a little bit of an interesting thing that happens. He goes, I believe, into the Muso, which allows you to digivolve the Bagra. I'm not too sure how the trigger works here. When it does pop up, because it is going to happen, I believe. Yep, it triggers the DD evolution, but then I was wondering, do I get to trigger my Bagramon in response? So it was very interesting. I think we both agreed that it probably would work. Again, let me know in the comments down below if I'm completely incorrect about this, because it is a then effect, so I thought it might work. But if not, just let us know. And so it doesn't really matter about the outcome, because I did have the hybrid in my hand anyways to finish off the game here. So I just swing for game.